at 6 p.m. We're going to be at Jimmy's Kitchen in Minnetonka and have a little get-together, and got some more people saying they're coming. So it looks like it's going to be a good time, which we always do have. And we just buy our own beer and talk direct marketing. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of the mission of the WDMA. Not to be too serious about it all, but to have a good time and keep the overhead low. That's the mission. So let's get to the news. Okay. Oh, and if you'd like to register, go to wdma.org. Tell me you're coming, and we'll have a big enough table for everybody. But before we get too serious about all that sort of thing, let's get over to the fun. You've probably never seen this commercial before.
Just being together, the thought of you. I can't wait till I get my hands on you. I still remember.
So these are fruit flies crawling all over
time
the...
that we've had.
Can't even talk about it. It's so awful. Okay, fruit flies love real fruit. And truly hard seltzer is now made with real fruit juice. My goodness, that reminds me of the Burger King ad where they let the burgers, age. And Burger King's got the most moldy because it, was real bread, real burger. And some of the competitors didn't get moldy at all because it's genetically engineered or something. So anyway, Truly, let's get over to Truly's story. Truly decided, this is by Steve Ellwanger from Media Post. They decided that they needed a good kick in the pants, and they're the number 2 leading hard, what is it called? Hard seltzer after White Claw. And they hired a guy to bring fruit flies, and they sprayed the cans with apparently their own concoction. And the fruit flies liked it and crawled all over it. I'm not sure if they wouldn't just go for sugar water too, but I just don't know. My wife hates those fruit flies because it's just so hard to catch. Can flies swarming on a beverage help revitalize sales growth? I don't know, but they reformulated this summer, and who loves fruit more than anyone else? Matt Willington says, the brand's senior director of marketing says, fruit flies. Told Marketing Daily. Okay, so anyway, they hired this guy, and we'll see how it does. But that was one of the weirdest commercials I've ever seen, and it wouldn't make me buy it. I would say something more like you'll feel good or you taste good or anything but that. You can get an old orange and get plenty of fruit flies if you want, or grapes. Okay, here's an article from Brand United, and a lot of it's from Chris Lyons. It was originally published in a different publication. It's mentioned at the bottom, and there's a link directly to it, and that's quite a bit longer. But I like this one because it was a little bit shorter and less self-promotional. So Chris Lyons says, a lot of people come in kind of untrained to mail. I did a talk in Minneapolis a couple of years ago, and we got a lot of kids who'd gotten their MBA. I had a partner, Bob. Let's see, what was Bob's? Anyway, I had Bob had been to one of my talks in Chicago, and he asked when I was going to come up, and Bob Beaver, that's right, and not spelled like the mammal. But anyway, Bob asked when I was coming up, and so I gave this talk called Why Mail, and it was really well received. And I went for about 45 minutes, and then we had about an hour worth of questions, and then we went out to a bar nearby and talked for another 2 hours about direct mail and direct marketing, One person came up to me and said that in all the marketing courses in entire marketing undergrad and MBA, I didn't ask what school, they had never had one class, one lecture on direct mail, which is the state of things. So I agree with Chris on that. And they were just fascinated that somebody could get up and explain why direct mail was more powerful than digital and all these other things. So Chris points out that direct mail is still a $60 billion marketing channel, and that direct mail is an effective, extremely effective medium that can be up to 600 times more effective than your digital marketing spend. That's an eye-popping ROI, and in parentheses, in case you're a marketing person and don't know what ROI means, that's return on investment. Now, most of the time, marketers think that return on ad spend is ROI, which it isn't. Let me just explain the difference. Return on investment is what your chief financial officer thinks about. And your chief financial officer will say, okay, this new machine tool or whatever it is that we would like to buy will improve our efficiency some 20%, let's say. And it's $1 million, okay? And we're a $50 million company. And so we should be able to, and our cost of goods is, let's say 50%. No, if it's a manufacturer, it's more like 25%. I'm getting lost in the numbers. But anyway, they'll think about it and they'll say, okay, how long will it take to recoup the $1 million we're spending on this machine? That's out of pocket, extra overhead, capital investment, and of course you can depreciate it, and there's all kinds of other incentives. But all that aside, we need to be able to run about $10 million more sales for a while, right? Or some significant cost savings in our cost of goods, or both, in order to justify that $1 million purchase. I've had marketers tell me with a straight face that their $1 million ad campaign broke even because it generated $1 million in sales. Now, the really scary part is that if the CFO is any good, which of course he or she is, they'll say, well, it's not enough to look at the overall increase in sales. That could have been caused by anything. What we need to look at is the incremental benefit of this machine over the previous machine that we're using now, right? So in order to produce ROI, you have to say, okay, this new technique, if it's mail or if it's a new creative direction, or if it's putting fruit flies on the can of hard seltzer, this not only did our sales go up, but directly attributable sales to this went up 20% or some number. It's that incremental level that has to pay for that investment, and that's often lost. It isn't the total sales, it's what's left over after you've paid for the fruit juice, and after you've paid after you've discounted it for the distribution, and so many factors. So ROI is a little bit more complicated than most marketers realize, and you should take your CFO out for a beer and see if you can keep up. Or come tomorrow night if you're in Minneapolis, Twin Cities, and we'll talk ROI. I think that would be a great topic for tomorrow. And they do serve beer at this restaurant, Jimmy's Kitchen, Minnetonka. Okay, many younger digital-centric graphic designers come in blind, Lyons laments. I doubt if he lamented. Because people coming out of school are not being educated in direct mail communication and print production. Right. Mailers who are precise with their manufacturing, distribution, and database management can actually decrease their overall costs. Now, that's probably not the way your CFO would look at it. It's not your overall costs. If you print 1 million And then you go and let's say it's $1 per piece in the mail with creative costs built in and all the rest. Overhead for marketing salaries. So it's $1 per piece. So you spent $1 million to mail 1,000,000 pieces. The second million won't lower your costs if you decide to mail a second million. Your costs will go up, but your cost per piece will be lower, or can be lower, because the same marketing creative can be used, right? The same marketing salaries have already since been paid, but also the print setup and other factors can be can have greater leverage. Plus, if you have good modeling and analytics, you might actually be able to make it more effective, raise the response rate. So your cost per piece and may go down, and your revenue per piece may go up, which means that your cost of acquisition or your ROI will increase. Boy, if anybody, is this exciting or what? Anyway, so deliverability is crucial to print campaign success, and implementing the right software programs can almost ensure there's no waste of distribution. Don't know if you ever get to that point. We did with Cabela's after our modeling stint with them. We did find a segment of 5,000 customers that pulled more than 100% response. So we got more than 5,000 orders out of that 5,000 piece mailing. But in general, marketing is guaranteed to have some waste, and quite a bit usually. Okay. Finally, almost half of marketers say brands are too focused on ROI. And how could you possibly be too focused on ROI? Well, first let's find out what they have to say. Okay, has there been an increased emphasis on tracking the following metrics? Return on investment is the number one that is said to have gotten more important. Why? Well, because if all of your work goes to brand building, like let's say the fruit fly example, instead of talking about how great your stuff tastes and how you'll get a great buzz, get it? Because it's not just fruit juice, but it's also booze in it. Because your brand building, without any sampling or any increased distribution or any discounting or anything like that, you may go under. That campaign may get so much attention that you just go right out of business. The sales go to nothing. Now, Pepsi, when the pandemic hit, said, we're going to cut our advertising way back because nobody can buy our soda. Never mind, the grocery stores were still open. The big boxes like Walmart were still open. Target, I think, was still open. Coke said, we're going to keep our budget the same. We're going to keep advertising. They gained something like 5 points of market share during the pandemic. Amazing. Who would have thought an old worn-out brand like that could gain, and Pepsi lost. What a surprise, right? So, but focusing and Coke in the short term was not gaining return on investment because they were making these investments and people were buying less Coke. But once it opened up a little bit, people were hungry for Coke. Okay, so when budgets are being squeezed, return on investment, it's not surprising, should shoot up the list of marketing priorities. Tracking of ROI has increased in emphasis in recent months. Okay, tracking of ROI. What's the danger? Well, the danger is that the return on investment typically is a time-based calculation. So that illustration of the machine tool that we're going to buy for $1 million, what we ask is, what's the rate of return? What's the payback period for that machine? All things being equal. Okay, and if it's less than 18 months or something, a lot of times it'll be approved pretty easily. Okay, you say, well, we get the payback pretty fast. ROI. So ROI usually has a window, but tracking ROI in a marketing spend They're not going to let you have 18 months to pay it back. They want, your CFO and CEO wants a payback of essentially anything they can track to that campaign, right? So we do a campaign. We want to see something like a 10-time increase in in sales over ad spend, something like 10 times. Okay, so if you spend $1 million, we want to see that produce 10 million in sales incrementally, especially, and that would generate a $10 million in sales would generate something like $1 million EBITDA, or maybe 3 million in EBITDA, and that would be a 30%, a 300% return on investment. That'd be great. Okay, that would be what your CFO is looking for, what your CEO is looking for. And we've seen those on a regular basis with mail. But customer lifetime value is something you also want to keep an eye on, and it's not that far down in the list. It's below increased click rates. Oh no, it made it ahead of click rates, just barely. And that's excellent, because what you really want to see is you want to gather the kind of customer that's going to make repeat purchases, and so that's going to keep the ROI going and lengthen that return on investment, that you make an investment this month and it keeps paying returns for 6, 9, 12 months, something like that. That's the kind of thing also that if it's provable, that would be great to see. Now, the biggest trouble is how do you figure all that out? Okay, almost half of marketers say that ROI is the most important metric for their CEO, CFO, and board members. Okay, followed by business outcomes and customer acquisition. That's growth. Now, growth oftentimes is expensive, and it's hard to grow and also maximize ROI. That's the tricky part. And that's also why you want to keep track of both of them, because to maximize ROI, you're best off just mailing the customers, just mailing the hotline, the most recent customers. In fact, I did some expert witness work for Dress Barn, and they had bought a catalog company, and they were trying to figure out why the results were so much better before they bought them. And it was pretty easy to spot. What the owners of the catalog company had done is they had just mailed the most recent customers, and they'd done that for about a year. And so you couldn't tell right away, but they weren't acquiring any customers at all. They were just shrinking it. And the return on investment was excellent, superb. And they used that as a leverage point to get a maximum valuation. And because they were being bought by a retailer, the retailer didn't realize that they didn't understand the dynamics of lifetime value and dynamics of customer file, maintenance and health, and so they didn't look for how much of that of their mailings had been devoted to prospecting, outside lists, versus how many had been devoted to just mailing the customers. And so I don't ever know how the court case came out, because I was just hired to give them the facts, but it was fascinating how if you focus just on return on investment, you may easily focus on the highest return paying customers and not maintaining growth or even treading water. Okay, so there is a disconnect between marketers and their understanding of financials and the metrics favored by the CFO and CEO. But I can tell you this: one of the great things about mail is that you can actually prove incremental profit. You can also prove causation, okay, not just correlation, but you can see who got mailed, who didn't get mailed. You can do holdout testing. There's a wide array of things you can do to prove the incremental benefit. That's why it's such a powerful tool if you work with your CFO and work with the CEO, and you get them on your side and say, okay, if I push $1 into this box and out jumps $3 every time I do it, how many dollars should I put into that box? And the CFO says, as many as I can rustle up. That's better than we're doing anywhere else. Right. And that's what happens. If you get and oftentimes the CFO is very astute at understanding testing. In fact, after Cabela's told us that we made them 2.4 million in one drop because of the modeling compared to what they had projected with their internally developed customer segmentation, the CFO said, "Oh, that's not a fair test," and he was right. It wasn't a fair test. We didn't test against their methodology, which is what we should have done. But later on, when we did test against their methodology, we had an incremental lift of 74%, and we had it in a time that really benefited their own segmentation method more than ours. But nevertheless, so anyway, interesting perspective from Charlotte Rogers. Thank you for that. And Marketing Week. Have a great day. Like and share your friends.